And we are live. Good evening. My name is Rabbi Avrohom Rapoport, and I'm honored to be a part of Light of Infinite event. And tonight, I was asked to address this wonderful audience and speak about the topic of happiness, the pursuit of happiness. We live in a very interesting time. There are so many people suggesting how can we find happiness in our lives and in the world. Every advertisement claims to have the answer to our happiness and pretty much requires our credit card in order for us to be able to find happiness. There are many books, there are many websites, but in some ways, the world is lacking when it comes to happiness today more than ever before. It's unbelievable. We live in a time where we are more affluent, we have more pleasures and luxury than ever in human history, yet when it comes to happiness, there seems to be a challenge. Now, why is the topic happiness that I chose for this talk tonight? Well, today was Rosh Chodesh Adar. It was the first day of the Hebrew month of Adar, and in the month of Adar, our sages teach us, Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. When the month of Adar arrives, we have to enhance our joy. So it's interesting. It doesn't say we have to be happy in the month of Adar. It says that when the month of Adar comes, we have to enhance our joy. Why? Because a person should try to be happy all the time. And on Adar, we enhance the joy. But how do we find joy? There are so many challenges in the world, so many problems, so many issues. People struggle with fears and anxieties, and so many outside forces is holding people back. How do we find joy in the world we live in today? And so that's why I want to share with you a very interesting story from the Talmud. This story is entertaining and somewhat disturbing. So the story is as follows. So there's another holiday that the Judaism speaks about happiness, and that is the holiday of Sukkot. So on Purim, coming up, we're supposed to be happy, the month of Adar. And then, of course, there's the holiday of Sukkot. It's Chag Simchasenu, the time of our joy. And the Talmud, while discussing the laws of Sukkah, brings a strange story, a very cryptic story, about two heretics that lived in the time of the Talmud, I guess 1700 years ago or so. And these two heretics, their names were Sason and Simcha, and they decided to have an argument where they were going to diss each other using verses from the Torah. So talk about being disrespectful, putting other people down and finding sources in the Torah to put other people down, and that's what these two heretics were doing. Now, by the way, a heretic is not an easy title to be given. You see, I've met many people that they question and they doubt their faith, and they call themselves heretics. But I haven't met many real heretics. Oftentimes I meet people that are ignorant, they never really study about Judaism, they have an opinion, and they call themselves heretics. A real heretic is an individual who actually studies Judaism in depth and then comes to the conclusion, this is not for me, this is silliness, and so such a person is a heretic. And there were two heretics in the time of the Talmud, and they went by the names of Sason and Simcha. Loosely translated, Sason means joy, and Simcha means happiness. So these two heretics were arguing with each other. Sason turns to Simcha and says, I am greater than you. Why? The verse in the Torah says, Sason v'simcha. It says the word Sason, my name first, so I'm greater than you. Comes along Simcha and says, no, I'm greater than you. And he finds another verse in the Torah, it says, and the Jews had Simcha and Sason. I believe that's in the Megillah. So he says, I have a source in the Torah that I, Simcha, are greater than Sason. And this is the kind of argument they're having. Now the Talmud continues that Sason decided to harass a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Avahu. And he says to Rabbi Avahu, I am so great. Rabbi Avahu says, and why do you say that? And he says, it's written, you will draw water bisason, to Sason. I'm Sason. In the world to come, you, Rabbi, will be drawing water for me because my name is Sason. Well, Rabbi Avahu heard what this heretic said, and he decided to come right back at him, and he says, no, listen up. It doesn't say, lisason, we will draw water. Lamed in Hebrew means two. It says with a bet, bisason, who with Sason we will draw water. And he looks at this heretic Sason and he says, in the world to come, you will be made into a flask, into a jug. Your skin will become a canteen. And with the water inside your skin, we will be served. It doesn't say to you, it says with you. And this is the story in the Talmud about two heretics. Very odd. Cryptic, entertaining, slightly disturbing. Why would the Talmud memorialize such a strange argument between two heretics for all time? The things in the Talmud are so important. Why would they want to record this? The Talmud discusses important topics, laws, about values and morals. To record a silly conversation by two clowns, by two heretics, it just doesn't seem like it was so important. Why would the Torah do it? Talmud do it? And further, the question could be asked about the strange story. Rabbi Avahu encountered a heretic who was making a fun of him and a fun of Judaism and fun of the Torah. And what does Rabbi Avahu do? He makes fun of the heretic. Is that the right method that a rabbi should use when encountering people that are making fun of Judaism? Is it worth arguing with someone like this? On my social media feed, I have people that harass all the time. People that harass anti-Semitic comments, anti-Israel comments. So what do? I don't engage people that say ridiculous things. It's very simple. I click, I block, and then I delete the post. There's no reason to waste my time, their time, and any of the followers' time. Rebbe Vo could have just canceled this heretic by the name of Sason, and he could have just gone on with his day. But he not only responds, but he puts him down. And it just seems out of character for a rabbi to do. So these are the questions that are asked on this very fascinating story in the Talmud. Well, I'm going to explain this story on a deeper level. And perhaps we can learn a lesson for our own life on happiness. Sason and Simcha, two heretics, were having an argument. They weren't just playing around. They were actually discussing a very deep concept, a very deep idea, as follows. What is true happiness? Sason means joy, Simcha means happiness. Sason is saying, real happiness is when you achieve joy. What's the difference between joy and happiness? Well, Sason is when something truly exciting happens. For example, you win the lottery. You go on a vacation. Maybe your child gets married. You graduate school. You go to a fancy restaurant and you eat a delicious meal, a once-in-the-year type of restaurant. This is called Sason. This kind of joy and happiness is something that comes once in a while and just lifts you out of your ordinary life. It's spontaneous. It's unique. It's exciting. Well, simcha means happiness, but it means something a little different. Simcha is a slower pace. Simcha is when you put a lot of effort into something and you finally are able to enjoy or appreciate the results. You get the nachas. Raising children, day in and day out. It's not glorious, but after many years, you look at your family and you say, this is simcha, this is happiness. It wasn't sporadic, it wasn't one big thing that happened, but it's something that came after a lot of effort. It's working hard to go to school and get a degree and build a career and build a business, and you look at your life and you say, I have simcha, I'm proud of what I have. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't appear out of nowhere. It was hard work. It was intentional. It was slow. It was mature. This is the difference between simcha and sason. While sason is more spontaneous, explosive, simcha is more mature, consistent, and internal. It comes from years of labor and discipline. Sason insists that life is about short-term pleasures, and simcha argues that that is superficial and short-term. What's really valuable in life are the things that you build over time and you put the efforts into. So sason and simcha, the two heretics, are not just two heretics clowning around, but they're actually discussing a very deep concept in life, in Judaism, in purpose. What's more important, to have joy or to have happiness? Sason says you need some wild times. You live once and you got to enjoy. Simcha says wild times come and go. It's nice, but it's not real happiness. It doesn't last. So who's right? Sason or simcha? Well, the fact that the Talmud writes both opinions means that both are important in life. We need to build long-term happiness. And of course, we also need fun, sporadic moments of joy and excitement to keep things exciting and alive. But Rabbi Vahu comes and teaches something much, much deeper. And he says, both sason and simcha, joy and happiness, while they're important in life, to have such experiences, Rabbi Vahu says, no. There's something even deeper still. You see, the reason why happiness or joy is so hard to achieve is because the very act of searching for it oftentimes stifles the happiness. Rabbi Vahu explains that happiness is fleeting. When a person is poor, they say, if I only won the lottery, I'll be happy. And then you win the lottery, it's exciting for a while, but it doesn't last. The more we chase happiness, it seems to elude us. And so it's tricky. You know, there's a New York Times article that did a study, and they found out that most people don't even know what would actually make them happy. When asked, what would make you happy? They think about a couple things, but they actually can't really articulate it. Happiness can be very fleeting. And the more you try, the more we chase it, many times we miss it. Here's an example. Take a child. A small child is playing, giggling, laughing, running outdoors on the sliding pond, throwing a ball, gleefully. And you go over to the child and you say, tell me, why are you so happy? Why are you so happy? And the child says, stop bothering me. What are you talking about? You ask the child, is it something you accomplished in your life? Is it something you read? The child says, get out of my way. I'm too busy living right now. And you're interrupting my life. Child doesn't think about what makes them happy. It's that when they're connected to life, to the universe, when they are not trying to be happy, happiness flows through them. And when we try to be happy, when we try to create happy moments, many times it doesn't work. Happiness is something that's just a natural state. And sometimes by going and trying to get the happiness, we actually block the happiness with our own ego. A child is truly happy. We can understand this in our own life when it comes to health. Take, for example, the body. If you don't feel the body, that's a good sign. It means that nothing's broken. The moment we start to feel our back, our neck, our head, our foot, the moment we start to feel any part of ourselves, suddenly there's a concern. There's a concern maybe something's wrong. When we're truly healthy, we feel nothing because we're attached, we're connected to life, we're connected to our soul. And so energy flows through us. It's only when we have pain and we feel something's wrong. For those that are watching that are more creative, the artists, musicians amongst us experience this phenomena all the time. For example, someone tells you, create a masterpiece, a song, a painting, a poem, and do it by this weekend, and I'll pay you a lot of money. Well, when there's an external force causing us to be creative, oftentimes we can't come up with anything creative. There's a blockage. There's too much pressure. Our ego starts to block the flow of divine life and creativity that's flowing from our soul. And so many times an artist has a block and they can't seem to create anything. And the harder they try, the more they block the creative flow, and nothing worthwhile is produced. Perhaps this is why many times the best songs and the best art is created after a person goes through a crisis in life. Sometimes after going through a crisis in life, we become broken and vulnerable. And when our ego starts to crumble, when our ego starts to melt, suddenly our soul begins to flow through us. And sometimes after tragedy or after challenge, we become the most creative. We write the best music. We make the best poetry. We create the most beautiful art. Because we're in touch with our essence. And our ego doesn't block us anymore. We're in touch with the universe. We're in touch with God. We're in touch with life. And we're not trying. We've given up. And it's at that moment that the light flows through us. And happiness seems to work the same way. The more we try to be happy, the harder we reach to attain it, the more elusive it is and the more it disappears. And the further it goes. It's when we're in touch with life, in touch with Hashem, in touch with our soul, when we are able to let go of outside forces, let go of our ego in that moment, when we're not ready or trying or thinking about it, happiness can flow through us. And when can we do this? When can we do this best? Well, we could do this best. We could do this best when we are living a life for someone else, when we're helping other people. In the act of giving, of caring, of sharing, in such a moment, we're not thinking about our own needs. Suddenly, our soul allows the spiritual life to flow through us, and we begin to find a happiness that doesn't exist from buying a new car, a happiness that doesn't exist from the best meal in a restaurant. It's a true happiness. It's when we are in touch with our purpose. We are here in this world to give and to share and to care and to love. And when we are doing that, we're in touch with our soul. We're truly alive. And when we're truly alive, we could truly be happy. And so Rabbi Vahu turns to Sason and he says, it doesn't say Bisason. Lissason. It doesn't say we will draw water for you. It says with you, Bisason. With you we will draw water. You will be the flask of which we will draw and serve the water. And on the surface it seems like Rabbi Vahu is being offensive. But on a deeper examination of the story, we understand what Rabbi Vahu is truly saying. He's saying, you want to be sason, you want to be joyful, you want to really be joyful, when you could learn to live a life where you become the pitcher, when you become the source with which others are satiated and given vitality. Their thirst in their needs in life are quenched because of you. When you become the flask, that's when you'll truly find joy and happiness. And of course, I love the story about, I believe it's told about the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneir Zalman of Liadi, or the Baal Shem Tov, one or the other. But they were once raising money for a poor family who was in a difficult situation, and they needed to raise 1,000 ruble. And he was traveling from village to village, asking the already poor people to part with the few coins they have so they could raise the funds necessary to save this family. And he came to one town, and he saw there was a beautiful mansion on top of the hill. And he turns to the people in the town, and he says, who lives there? He says, yeah, a Jewish guy. He's a miser, though. He never gives anyone anything. Don't even waste your time. Don't go there. The Alter Rebbe says, let me try. He said, don't even try, because everyone who goes and asks for charity, he gives them a rusty penny. That's all he gives them. Nothing else. Well, the Alter Rebbe went anyway, and he knocked on the door. And the man answered the door. He was honored to have a rabbi visit him. And he said to him the story about the people that are suffering. And the wealthy man reached into his purse and pulled out a rusty copper coin, and he gave it. He says, here, I'm happy to contribute. The Alter Rebbe took the coin and said, thank you so much. May God bless you for your kindness. The other Jewish leaders of the town thought this was very odd. The Alter Rebbe turned around and started leaving. Suddenly, the wealthy man said, wait, come back. How much did you need? They said, we need 1,000 ruble. He says, and he gives them 100 ruble. He says, here. And the Alter Rebbe takes it and looks in his eyes, and he says, thank you so much. May Hashem bless you for your kindness. And he turns around and starts to leave. And suddenly the wealthy man says, whoa, slow down, wait. I'll give you a little more, and gives him another 400 silver coins, rubles. He thanks him again. And finally, the wealthy man says, no, come back. I'll give you all the money, and gives him 1,000 coins. Later, the other town's people were confused. This man never gave more than a rusty penny. How did the Alter Rebbe accomplish this miracle? And they asked him, and you know what the Alter Rebbe said? He said, this man never experienced the joy of giving. Every time he gave a rusty penny, because that's maybe all he had once upon a time, people threw it back in his face. And so he just kept on giving it, thinking it doesn't really make a difference. No one wants my kindness. But he never had the experience of true joy that you get when you become the flask, when you help someone else in need. And when the Alter Rebbe accepted that rusty coin and thanked him profusely and blessed him for his kindness, he felt a sensation he never experienced before. his big house and the gold and the diamonds and the silver and the servants and the luxury vacations and the fine wine, all that paled in comparison to the fulfillment and the joy a person gets when they're connected to their purpose. We're here to help others, to be a light, to be hope, to be a flask through which water is poured for others. And when he experienced that, he couldn't get enough of it. And so, my friends, Misha Nichnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha. We're in the Jewish month of Adar, and the sages say we have to enhance in our joy. Let us think to ourselves, how can we be the flask in someone else's life? How can we lift someone else up? Be there for another individual. And by doing that, we will bypass our ego. We will connect to our purpose, to our source, to our soul, to our God. And in the experience, please God, we will have sason v'simcha, joy and happiness. May it be a joyous Adar, a joyous Purim, and may we merit the coming of Mashiach b'mheira v'yameinu. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Light of the Infinite, for putting this wonderful program together. For those who enjoyed my talk, and you want to follow me, Rabbi Raps on Instagram and TikTok. They call me the TikTok Rebbe. Signing off, Shalom.